I'm 31 years old, female, 5'11", and living in San Francisco. I have been mostly single, trying to find my match throughout my 20s, often via the apps, which haven't proven successful. It only recently occurred to me that my height may be a variable. Here's to being tall, confident, and a little oblivious. Haha. I would love to hear more about your thoughts on dating as a tall woman. I didn't realize the things I'm experiencing could be a thing many tall women experience until you mentioned it offhand a couple times on your podcast. I don't even know what you're talking about, but I probably, I would love more advice on how we Amazons could be more successful out there. Thank you so much. So this was sent to me by Dana. So you're tall too, right?
Yeah, I'm not as tall as you. I'm 5'8". Are you 5'11"?
I'm 5'11".
Yeah.
That's still,
so we are Amazons.
Pretty
women.
Tall.
Yeah.
Natural.
It's an interesting one because it sounds like Dana is not bothered by the height of the men, right? It sounds like it's the other way around, because it's not like she's saying, I'm 5'11", I'm only going to date men who are 6'6".
No, she never mentioned her height specifications. I think she is experiencing height discrimination on the apps from men.
Yeah. It's such a tricky one, isn't it? Because I know that you always say you shouldn't worry about height, and I know that one of my good friends in the UK, one of the top matchmakers, Caroline Brealey, she always said that as a matchmaker, that was one of her biggest bugbears, was people who adamantly, were fixed on height. I have to say, I'm not attracted to men who are shorter than me. I know I'm not. I've tried dating many who are shorter than me, and I know the reason for that is that I like to feel a bit more feminine. I feel quite lumbering and big if the guy, I'm also quite heavy, right? I don't like if the guy weighs less than me. I wouldn't date someone who was taller than me and weighed less than me. It would make me feel masculine, and I don't want that. So I do get that. I think the thing with dating is working out your deal breakers and actually working out which ones are really deal breakers. Because I think when you start dating, people have got like this list of like 25 things. And I think you have to look at each thing and think, actually, is this genuinely a deal breaker? And what are the reasons behind that? I mean, I'm 5'8". I used to live with someone who was 6'8". And I love that because it made
6'8"?
Yeah. First time in my life, I felt
How did you
small and
get
petite.
around?
Get around. Oh, it's absolutely fine. You're all the same length, lying down.
No, not. How did you get around, like in a car? Or
he fitted into normal cars. It was fine.
Okay.
No, he just had to duck his head getting into a doorway. I think that's the only issue. What is quite funny is if you ever look at any of the pictures of us together, I look like a small child next to him, which I have never done in my entire life, because normally I'm the one, like the tallest one in the picture, especially in heels. But I did enjoy that. It made me feel more feminine and more girly, which I think, as someone who, a lot of my best friends are like 5'2", and I'm the person that can't go out in heels on a night out with her friends because otherwise I'm towering like a foot above them. I like that feeling, but I've learned that there are other things that I can't be fussy about if I'm going to be fussy about height. Right, like that. I think you have to make allowances for other things and decide really what is the most important thing to you. I mean, with Dana, she doesn't sound like she's the one that's bothered. It sounds like it's the other people, which is sad. And I think, but I suppose it works both ways. And if I feel effeminated, is that a word? The opposite of emasculated? If unfeminine by being bigger than the guys, then there will be men who feel emasculated feeling shorter than a woman. And I think it's just a reality, right? I know a lot of men who are married to taller women. I think, is your husband a little bit shorter than you? Or are you same height?
He claims to be an inch taller than me. I think he's half an inch taller than me. But he met me in heels. So, he met me 2 inches taller than him. But I'm not at 5'11". When I was single, I was open to dating men 5'9" and up. But that's because I didn't think my femininity came from my height. I thought my femininity came in other ways. I'm a very nurturing person. I'm a great listener. And I think, there's so many things you can attribute to being feminine, masculine. That's a very binary way of thinking as well. But I didn't think my femininity came from my height or even my body type. So I love that there's two perspectives on this, right? you have this perspective of height. And whereas for me, I'm not a heightist. I've always been quite reasonable with the height. I mean, I've been on dates with men who are even shorter than 5'9", but I feel like anyone I've been in a relationship with usually 5'9" and above. What I will say to Dana is that the great thing about being tall, and what she self-described herself as confident, is that you can market really well in real life interactions. And so, and I know that's not a option for a lot of people. I get that. But if you think about even online, right? Like I always tell my single clients, you're only going to go down the aisle with one wedding dress, just like you're only going to marry one person reasonably if you're not into polyamory. So so that being said, you know, yes, maybe there's not a lot of men looking for you because of height restrictions. But at the end of the day, I would hope you only want to meet men who don't care about this or are genuinely interested in meeting someone of your height. So, you know, maybe it's less interactions, but maybe they can be more focused on quality. You know, the one last thing here I want to say about height, it's so weird. Like in my experience, like professionally as a matchmaker, a lot of tall men that I've met, they usually, at least when they come to me, I'm sure it's very different in real life and on the apps, but when they come to me, they'll say stuff like, well, I'm 5'11" or I'm 6 feet. I only want to date women 5'7" and up. Like if I produce a match, it's 5'5", it becomes a debate, which I find very frustrating.
It's an interesting one though, isn't it? Because I've got lots of friends who are like 5'2", 5'3", who still want to date people who are over 6 foot, and it's become this like magic number. And I think the interesting thing is if you don't care about height, you can clean up on these apps, right? Because there are lots of very eligible men around who are 5'5", 5'6", 5'7", and you see that on their profiles, right? You see these guys who are incredible and clearly and are mentioning their height because it's clearly been an issue with other women on the apps. So I think if that's something that you decide is not a deal breaker for you, then you are opening massive doors for yourself.
I just want to, it's so funny. A colleague of mine this morning asked me, Maria, do you have any Jewish men who are over 6 feet tall that live in New York City that are very successful? And I said to her, no, like currently any of my Jewish clients that live in New York are 5'8", which is the average height of most men. And then I said to her, now she's not in New York City. I said to her, you know, you're lucky in New York City, 13% of the population is Jewish. Like it's less than 1% of the population in the world is Jewish, but in Manhattan, 13% of the population is Jewish in New York City, right? But only 10% of the population is over 6 feet tall. So 13 times 10%, that equals 1.9% of Jewish men that might be over 6 feet tall.
And we've not even thought about how many of them are single yet, right?
Like right. We haven't talked about how many are single. We haven't talked about how many are secure attachment types. We haven't talked about how many people want to meet someone just like you, where you fit all of their criteria. Like, so you're asking for the 1% who now has to fulfill the rest of the criteria that you have, but also you have to fit his. And now you've made the goalpost even smaller. So, you know, exactly what you said, if you can open up yourself to height, your height and up, that's all I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking for you to go below, but if you could just do your height and up, you will be really surprised by the kind of men you might find yourself dating. And you could be happy. I mean, what is the worst case scenario here? You go on a lovely first date. You meet someone new. You have in COVID times, you have a 30-minute Zoom date. Like what are we talking about? What's the worst thing here?
I mean, everyone's the same height on Zoom, aren't they?